Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Hello, Timberwolves loving friends. This is Flagrant Howls, perhaps a therapy session after God knows what happened in the fourth quarter last night. And it's an emergency Kyle appearance here, too. We couldn't wait until the usual Thursday Phil and Kyle slot. So Kyle's going to join us for the Hottest Wolves Takes edition. But first, we're going to do a reading from the text thread of Phil and Kyle. Oh, no. From Kyle, I've never been that mad before. LOL. I got drunk last night because of that game and researched dinosaurs for 3 hours on the internet.
Yeah. I've heard since that text that Judd might have a dinosaur take that I think he needs to unleash. But I was telling Dex before we hit record, I've never felt like that. I was trying to look back this morning too to be like, was that just hot take? Like, I think that was maybe the worst regular season loss that I can remember. Maybe you guys have one that comes to mind. Like, there was that Cole Anthony buzzer beater when there was no one in the arena for COVID. There's been a lot of buzzer beaters against this team, but when the playoff stakes and like how the vibes were and you had a chance to like maybe even host a playoff series if you just kind of keep it together. And again, you don't want to lose to the Bucks. They're shorthanded anyway, but to do it the way they did it, they called timeouts. They didn't call timeouts. They played against the Syracuse zone, like everything. I mean, that a buzzer beater feels like taking a bullet to the head and just like instant death. Last night felt like watching someone get tortured for what seemed like 6 hours, and that was the worst loss I've ever witnessed, and I don't feel great today.
And it was like, okay, we're gonna telegraph how we're going to torture you, and there are known ways to counter the torture, and they just refused. So we'll get into all this. We'll wrap it up in our hottest Wolves takes. But if the Timberwolves made you appreciate adult beverages, Judd. Craft Beer Fest is happening, or Dex. You can talk about craft beer.
But it sounds really good.
Whoever wants to talk.
It sounds really good.
In Judd's defense, he does love a craft beer.
I assume Judd, yeah.
Yes, he does love a craft. I like craft beer as well. And in fact, so on April 26th, the Minneapolis Convention Center from 1 to 5 o'clock, we have the Minnesota Craft Beer Festival. There'll be over 80 breweries and craft beverage companies on site serving unlimited pours from across the state and country. If you love craft beer, if you're pissed about Minnesota sports, go to the Craft Beer Festival. Get your tickets. MinnesotaCraftBeerFestival.com. That's MinnesotaCraftBeerFestival.com.
Peace, love, and craft beer.
Can I ask a question quick though? Because I feel like I have two guys book and ending me on the show right now who are just incredibly upset, and I totally get that. And like, this is how I have felt certainly about the Wild at times, right? Wow. But I feel like here I'm a little bit more like at a distance. So I've got a question. Sports therapy. And I know that you guys are mad at the Wolves. But that being said, are you really mad at the Wolves, or are you mad at yourselves for buying into a team that's basically been trying to tell you all season long at different times who they are?
I'll defer to Phil.
Well, it's a fair question. It's a very fair question. I hitched part of my rage is also selfish in that I hitched my wagon, the only person, by the way, to hitch their wagon over a month ago to the 50 wins train.
Okay.
And I was telling these guys on the Write That Down episode, Kyle, I had a tweet loaded and ready to rock last night when they were up by 24 points. And thank God I didn't click send, or the dunking and the clowning would be merciless. But I went and found the clip from this show. I think it was Hottest Wolves Takes on March 5th, 2025. And I said, this is going to sound crazy, but when you look at their schedule, I think they can win 50 games still. I think they can finish 18-3 and win 50 games. And you go boom, 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 boom. And they were up 24 points. And then, of course, the Memphis game on Thursday is going to be tough, but 2 layups this weekend. You win these 4, you win 50 games. So part of it was like, this should be a 55-win team. If you go back and play the Pelicans games, the Blazers games, but to sit here and say the if this that, it is part of their identity losing these games. So there is no separating the look how they are when they're awesome. Look what they look like for 3 quarters. If you just take away this fourth quarter, that fourth quarter is part of who they are the entire season. So yeah, I guess to answer Judd's question, for myself. The joke is on me, 100%.
Yeah, I think the joke is on me as well. In like Timberwolves fandom lore, especially like on the blog side, there's always this analogy to like Charlie Brown kicking the football, and how every time he went to kick the football, Lucy would just pick the football up and Charlie would land on his rear end, and the joke's on you. So I get it. Like I think I went to kick the football again. They have been telling you this all season long. No team has worse performances in the clutch than the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't think any team has played more clutch games this season than the Minnesota Timberwolves. They have really carved out that analogy of 44 minutes versus the final four. I mean, those are essentially two different sports now in the NBA, where the first 44 you just kind of grind, and then can you close out those last 4 minutes? And you kind of could write off every single situation as a one-off in the past, but for it to happen last night, to be a 24-point lead, they called timeouts, they just did everything they could, and to watch it all happen with a real actual like carrot in front of them this time. Like, it wasn't like losing a game in November. You had a chance to get home court advantage maybe if things broke your way. So, no, I'm with Judd. I'm with Phil. The egg is on my face and Phil's face.
So with that, if I may, could I hit the first T-ball with the hottest Wolves takes? And
yeah.
You guys can go find the ball and do whatever you want with it here.
That's
right?
usually how I golf. Yep.
That's why you got to use those like bright colored golf balls so you can. Well, there's my orange golf ball that's 15 yards into the rough. All right, my hottest Wolves take is after yesterday's news in Denver and after yesterday's performance in Milwaukee by the Timberwolves should strongly consider replacing Chris Finch with Mike Malone as their next head coach. Not before the season's over like the Grizzlies and the Nuggets did. Play it out, see what happens. Obviously, if the Wolves get to like the Western Conference Finals miraculously, which is now, like, again, joke's on me for even saying that out loud, barring some miracle run where they get over these late game glitches, they should 100% consider the guy that Tim Connolly hired and partnered with for 6 or 7 years to build 90% of a championship team, but then Tim Connolly left and Calvin Booth jumped in for the championship season. But the connecting of the dots is pretty obvious. Like the connection of Mike Malone and Tim Connolly in Denver, the work that they did. Mike Malone helped develop Nikola Jokic into an all-time great NBA player. Like, a lot of credit to the player, obviously, but Mike Malone, with his motivational tactics, his scheming, everything, is a reason why Nikola Jokic also has blossomed into one of the great NBA players of all time. And if I give you this, okay, if you're the Timberwolves and you're looking to get from a really competitive, good basketball team that has a bunch of fatal flaws that need to be ironed out, maybe some of them through personnel, but some of them through coaching and development. If I said in the last 10 years, there's 2 NBA coaches with 450-plus wins and championship credibility, what would you think of this list? Steve Kerr and Mike Malone. So Chris Finch picked a hell of a night to be standing there expressionless on the sidelines with no answers for a 2-3 zone. The players need answers for that too, by the way. But in the absence of the players having the answers, the coach needs to provide the answers. Picked a hell of a night for that to happen hours after Mike Malone hit the open market. So that's my hottest take. Should the Wolves consider, or the Wolves should consider. I know Vinny's considering.
Vinny's like, hell yeah, I bet on that game last night.
His collar's halfway off now, so it's now just like extra noise. We're getting him a new collar. It's a whole thing. But yes, I'm sorry. My bad.
It's fine. I think that is a very interesting thing. I think it might be on point because of this. I think Tim Connolly stays now. I think the thing was Tim Connolly might leave if Glenn Taylor got the team back, right? Well, that's not going to take place now.
How much does the Connolly family love Denver is another question.
Well, that's true, but I think there's an opportunity here still. I don't know. See, here's the problem in Denver that remains. That's why he left. So they didn't offer as much. They don't spend a ton there. Like I think that these guys are going to spend more. And the other thing too is I think they're a bit dysfunctional. Like the thing is, he took a job with guys that I think he trusts now, and they're going to be in power. So that changes things. But the thing is now there's 2, and probably Malone's at the top of this list. Really decent, good coaching candidates. So I know you're mad right now and reactionary, and you just want change, but I don't think you're wrong. I think that there is a chance. I mean, if nothing else, Tim Connelly has proven he is calculated.
Hold on, stop.
Calculated.
I'm not reactionarily asking for change because I'm not even asking for change. I think, just to be clear, Chris Finch is a huge reason why this team is one of the most competitive teams in the NBA. He came in really, really bad organizational track record, and you could argue that it's him and Flip Saunders neck and neck, best coach in Wolves history, but he was a culture changer, a culture builder. He has helped Ant get to the point that he's at. Western Conference Finals, all of that is true. I'm saying if you want to win championships and iron out some of these things, I'm not asking like, I'm mad, fire a coach, I'm mad. I'm saying if you think Mike Malone is a next level dude and those dudes don't come along very often, then that is a meeting that you should be holding behind closed doors without Chris Finch in.
And Conley knows him well, gave him the job in Denver. It makes some sense for sure. Kyle?
Let's just do the Chris Finch thing, because I have been pretty pro Chris Finch, and let's just be honest, all four of us, we're all married. So you have a spouse, man or woman, and they're great with the kids, they cook a little bit, they have a good job, all these different things. Like, that's a really great spouse. I want to be tethered to that person for a while. But in the last couple minutes of the day, like the last couple minutes of a game, he or she just snores. And you're like, you know what? I think I can get around that.
Declan and I are screwed.
I think I
got that problem.
Right, I can get around that because everything else is good, and I wake up and there's tea made for me, and whatever it is. But after a while, you're like, I'm not sleeping. Like literally, like me last night. Like, I'm not sleeping. Like, this isn't getting better. Like, can we do a breathe right strip? Can we do something? Or does your spouse like have a deviated septum and this is like broken? And that's kind of where I find myself this morning, is like there are so many other things with what this coach has done that are real. And some of them are just behind the scenes stuff that only, if you talk to people, you find out. But every night now, this team just snores. And to just blow all these games because you don't execute in the final 4 minutes is mind-blowing. And if I can just pause and read a quick transcript that I think I want Phil and Judd to respond to, I thought this was fascinating last night. Third quarter, they're up 12. They come from a timeout, and Leah B. Olson, who does a great job as a sideline reporter, is inside Chris Finch's huddle, talking about Anthony Edwards.
I remember this. Yeah.
He actually ran the whole huddle, and told them, we have to keep playing with the same energy. And if we keep playing with this energy, we can do anything. We don't even need to run plays. To which Chris Finch then kind of butted in and said, yeah, here are a couple plays. I'm never like I don't care who the blame is on. I'm more of just like, how do we get out of this thing? I still don't know if any of us or anyone who covers this team or anyone who cheers for the team or works for him can diagnose exactly what is the pie chart of blame here. But there's something. And to lose games like this now that have real value and meaning, I don't know if it's the coach running the huddle, the star player running the huddle, but that was just interesting last night, because then you watched in the fourth quarter, they're up 24, it gets to 16, timeout. Gets to 8, timeout. Out of both those timeouts that everyone wanted, they didn't score. Okay, Julius and Ant had the dumbest turnovers. Jaden looked like he was scared to be out there. I mean, everyone that was wearing white or black half zip failed them last night, and it's going to hurt them now in the standings.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge pie chart of blame for players, and Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle as the leading scorers, the most talented offensive players, for them to be completely lost against a fairly basic zone that you see throughout your basketball life. And yeah, I will defend Finch is the placement of timeouts. He called it's 24 down to 16 timeout. Now it's 16 down to 8 timeout. My beef is with those timeouts and with like the game is on the line with 10 seconds left timeouts and the plays that are diagrammed just blow up in the Wolves' face time and time again at the end of games. What is happening in those timeouts where these guys are coming out unprepared, deer in the headlights? And actually, let me ask you 2 quick questions off of the Chris Finch part of the conversation. Number one, why are the Wolves so terrible in clutch time? And I know that there's going to be some player-specific blame that it could be Phil Jackson in the late 90s as your coach, and the Wolves would still be low IQ blowing these games in some ways. But last night, they couldn't solve the 2-3 zone for literally an entire quarter. This season, the Wolves have now lost 26 clutch time games. That's 5 minutes left, 5-point game or closer. They've lost 26 clutch time games. They are now worse in clutch time net rating this season than the Wizards, Hornets, Pelicans, and Blazers. And it was even worse last season in terms of net rating in the clutch time. Yep. They're 25th this season. They were 27th last year. So it's been a 2-year problem for them. That's my first question. And my second question is more of a big philosophical question that they have to answer, which is Chris Finch the guy to partner with Anthony Edwards to win a championship? If those guys are, if Ant's going to hoist an LOB, is it going to be Finch next to him with the confetti falling? Or was Finch a necessary piece to get them to this point?
Doug Collins.
And was he the Doug Collins? Was he the Mark Jackson? Yeah. Was he the Del Harris? Los Angeles with Kobe and Shaq, and they're going to the Western Conference Finals, and then that's Phil Jackson. What's Phil Jackson doing? Is he 90 yet? We can call Phil Jackson, I guess, is the theme here. Giannis got to a certain point with Jason Kidd, and then I know he got fired eventually, but Mike Budenholzer came in, immediate 60-win season, win a championship 2 years later. As Kyle would say in our new segment last week, I'm just asking the questions. Why are they so bad in clutch time? And is Chris Finch the guy to take an Anthony Edwards team to that level?
And just to put a bow on it, this whole snoring analogy with your spouse, can you fix the snoring, or do you need to start dating other people? And my only thing is, and I don't care who, I don't care anymore. I just want it fixed. I just want to sleep better. But what if the new spouse isn't great with kids, or doesn't like caffeine, or can't cook, or doesn't have a good job? Like I think of Frank Vogel when he won that title with the Lakers, and then it kind of didn't work out, and then they go get Darvin Ham. So I'm not trying to ride for Chris Finch this morning. I think that would be lunacy, but also this whole idea of just firing the head coach. I mean, last night when I watched them come out of those timeouts, really bad execution. They can't get the ball inside the 3-point line. Julius Randle had the laziest turnover that resulted in 2 points, right? Dante DiVincenzo had the laziest turnover that resulted in 3 points. Some of this stuff, everyone needs to be blamed, and that's why it's and they've opened themselves up now to, even if they do go beat Memphis, and then they close it out at home, and they're the 5 or 6 seed, and it's okay, we avoided some disaster. You don't think every single opponent that they play in the playoffs is going to tell their guys, just keep it close, because the last 4 minutes they're going to wilt.
Yeah.
Well,
now
Mavericks,
you've exposed
yourself
to this is your true Achilles heel that, hey, it doesn't matter what happens in the first 44 minutes. We can be down 1 billion points. Just keep it close, because they don't have, whether it be the coach or the assistant coaches or the players, they just don't have the ability to just stop bleeding on the court. And last night, that was a historic run, 23-0 run. They just didn't have anyone out there that was let me get to the free throw line. Let me just get a run stop. Because adding 2 points when someone's trying to make a run like that does still make it so much harder, right, to come back, and they just failed to do so.
Yeah.
And what's weird, too, is, so if it's back-to-back years, like Phil just said, though, that is a reflection on the coach big time. Because there's a certain, it feels like, level of panic, right? There's a certain, they melt down. If you melt down in one game, and it's isolated, even if it's as bad as the Bucks loss was, it's one game. So that gets taken with, yes, it's bad, but you take that with a grain of salt. But when it's 2 consecutive years and your clutch time statistics are so bad, and you look at what is transpiring, you call timeout sometimes, you don't, but it's still the same result too often. At some point in time, that has to, fair or not in your mind, that has to come back on the person who's in charge of the team, and ultimately, that's the head coach.
And real quick, last thing on this, and we'll get to everyone else's hottest takes. On Kyle's snoring analogy, yeah, there are other flaws that could pop up with a different spouse, right? And you have to weigh all that, and that's why I think the Chris Finch discussion is very specifically Chris Finch or Mike Malone. It's not, to me, it's not Chris Finch or
Darvin
fire
Ham.
Chris Finch and figure it out, start interviewing 10 people.
Right.
It would be, and you have to have that Mike Malone discussion. And by the way, if you decide that, hey, Malone worked in Denver because Jokic's personality is a certain way and those guys could mesh together with Malone's personality. If you decided that, you know what, Ant needs a guy with a demeanor like Finch, Malone and Ant would butt heads, and now you've got a whole world of problems. Like, I don't know, but that is a closed door meeting that needs to take place at some point here in the next few weeks.
To close this one out on Finch, it should be also added that Philly performance when Ant kind of saved them going supernova was an embarrassing performance, and I think we marinated for 2 days. Like, how are they going to come into a must-win game for the Bucks, by the way, even without Damian Lillard? And we're like, are they going to take this serious? Are they tired? Whatever. They're up 24 in the fourth quarter. Like, for 3.5 quarters, for 3 quarters, they came and played real professional basketball, and then that's what makes this harder. It wasn't like they just got blown out. They actually looked maybe the best 3 quarters they've played all season.
It's true.
And then they just collapsed.
Ridiculous. Okay, more hot takes coming up here. But if the Timberwolves have driven you to different sports, how about the World Juniors coming to town in the Twin Cities in a few months, Judd?
Yes. Because guess what? This is Sports Dad endorsed. It is the best hockey tournament, in my opinion, ever. It is the World Junior Hockey Championships to be held starting on December 26th of this year at the X. This tournament is just a who's who of future stars, of high draft picks, of guys who are going to be high picks. Best players, not from the country, but around the world. The tournament runs December 26th through January 5th of 2026. You can lock in your tickets now. Group play packages on sale. Go to worldjuniorsmn26.com. That's worldjuniorsmn26.com. These are 16-game packages for Group A or Group B prelim games, as well as quarterfinals, semifinals, bronze, and the gold medal games as well. Again, worldjuniorsmn26.com. If you're done with basketball, like last night, you are like, I am out. I'm going to tell you.
Recruiting.
And you want to watch guys with blades on their feet who are phenomenal players. The World Junior Hockey Championship is for you.
Okay, Brixworth is it's become a great spot to commiserate or to celebrate. Your favorite basketball team just steps away from Target Center. Brixworth in the North Loop is a great spot to pregame for home games or to belly up for away games. Can't imagine what that must have been like last night. But you can eat some of the best dry rub wings in town. Detroit-style pizza, the Nasreed Hazy IPA, and Brixworth is, like I said, walkable to Target Center. Cheaper parking options over there, too. So stop by, eat, and then head over to the game. It's patio season here, too. So pretty soon, if not right now, that sprawling patio is going to be on full display at Brixworth in the North Loop. And then one more quick shout out to North American Banking Company. 6 locations in the Twin Cities. It's a Minnesota-based banking company since 1998. Maple Grove, Roseville, Shoreview, Hastings, Woodbury, and 50th in France. And they're here to help you either with the basics like checking and savings, or if you have a big project or expense coming up and you need a bigger line of credit, they can help you with that as well, either with a mortgage for a home or some sort, putting maybe your home's equity to work in some fashion. So whether it's something big or something small banking related, North American Banking Company is here to help you. Personal relationships, cutting edge online tools. You will enjoy your experience. nabankcode.com/Mackey to learn more. That's nabankcode.com/Mackey. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. All right, Kyle, what's your hottest Wolves take right now?
I haven't played this game in a while, so I don't know if this even works. But if they make the top 6, I still think they're going to win a playoff series. I don't even want to think about how a plan could affect my health or my sleep. But if they find a way to beat Memphis, which again I know sounds as we wake up Wednesday morning like the unlikeliest of things to do, but that's what this team does. I mean, we just, like Judd said, they show you who they are. When they zig, or when we think they're going to zig, they zag, and vice versa.
They're for sure winning that game against Memphis now.
And that'll make all of us, look stupid, although...
And then they're going to lose to the Nets.
Yes, exactly. And, the Grizzlies are without 2 stars. They lost the rookie last night that really gave Ant hell, that Jalen Wells. But I still think, and this isn't even coping, because I do see, like Judd said, they're showing you who they are. And for me, it's still a pretty talented team that just cannot figure out these end-of-game situations. But if they finish in the top 6 and get a week off, to me that's my Larry O'Brien trophy. If they can have a week off to scout like they did last year against the Suns, I think they'll win a playoff series. if they have to be a 7 or an 8 seed come actual playoff time and play probably OKC or Houston, I do not think they will win that playoff series.
Judd, where are you at on the Wolves can win a playoff series meter?
Oh, I think
right
they
now?
can. Absolutely, I think they can. Yeah,
They're
good.
I do too.
They're a good team. They are, at the most inopportune times, incredibly dysfunctional, and I don't understand why. And as Krasinski asked Finch last night, and Finch, of course, distanced himself instantly from this, that was a microcosm of the season. It was. John was right about that. Like, that was basically, if there was throughout the season turpentine leaking at a construction site, right? And they kept showing that. And that was the buildup. And then somebody with a flamethrower came along and didn't know, and bam, the whole thing blew up. That was the blow up. But I mean, it was leaking. We've been leading up to this all season long. And I guess the special thing about it was we didn't know when it was going to, or if it was going to blow up. It did last night. That being said, I agree. They can win. Hell, you know what? If they get their mindset right, they can win 2 playoff series. I think it's possible. I think they can get back to the Western Conference Finals.
I think I'm done. I know I've been promoting that propaganda for weeks and months now. I need a minute to think on that. Because yes, the first 3 quarters version of the Timberwolves does exist. You've seen that. They have the 3rd best net rating in the league since January 6th. But if they're doing this once every week or once every 2 weeks, whether they actually lose the game or it just gets way closer than it should be, how is it going to work when teams are scouting you aggressively and getting into a 4th, 5th, 6th game in a series and really exploiting your flaws? That's the hurdle to overcome is even bigger once you hit the playoffs, because those teams are going to know specifically what your pressure points and weaknesses are more than they would on a random Tuesday night, as you're coasting through your schedule. So
I will just say the vibes this morning, this is the Vibes podcast, are not as low as they were after Game 82 against the Suns last year.
That's fair.
Right? But I will literally talk out of both sides of my mouth. So this way I'm like, hey, the vibes have been worse. They lost an important game, and then they swept the Suns. The difference is that this team has not shown at any point this season to have what last year's team had, that edge. Last year's team was just a better basketball team than this year's team. Long term, are they more flexible, all that stuff, I get it. But this year, they have not shown the killer instinct that they would show in game. And they lost dumb games last year, but I want to put that out there again as we're all like, okay, we're done. Like, let's move on to World Juniors. I'm with you. But, like, after Game 82 last year, it was like the Suns have their number, it's over, and then they did find a way to dial it up. That sounds like coping, but it actually happened. But at some point, you touch the burner too many times, you're going to have a scar, and that might happen with this roster. But they have a chance to do it. So I'm with Judd that if they can get the right matchups, but the fact now that you are a 44-minute team, everyone in the West knows that, and that's going to be an uphill to climb.
The scary thing is, and I've covered teams like this, and it's maddening, okay? They're talented, but they're completely flighty. But I'm sort of buying, and I'm not defending this, okay? But I am sort of buying the post-game locker room last night, which is, okay, yeah, game's done. Like, we're all like, what the hell do you mean the game's done? This is one of the most embarrassing losses. This team is super flighty.
Full credit to the Bucks. Yeah, that was crazy.
But that's what I'm sort of buying that, which means that you can turn around on a dime.
Yeah.
Like, ordinarily, this should affect you because it was so bad for the Grizzlies game, right? But like you said, Phil, it probably won't. They'll probably win. So this team is impossible to get your head around.
I think as someone who has been pushing for months the idea that they are good enough to get back to the Western Conference Finals, I'm not off that. I just need a minute from thinking about that, and I need a minute from that take. I'm more interested in the crushing of the culprits from last night than I am optimistically projecting that they can still win 2 playoff series. Yeah. Well, Positive Phil may make a comeback at some point in the coming days, but it's not going to be
Dude's
today.
in Greece right now. He ain't coming back.
Yeah.
Kyle kind of touched on it, but it kind of dovetails into my hottest take. But my take would be pissed off. That's fine, but don't panic. Don't panic, because I was at that final regular season game last year against the Suns. That was, I mean, they lost by 20 points. They were locked in to play the Phoenix Suns again. They were 0-3 against Phoenix in the regular season. They had lost like 2 times by 20 points. They had Durant. They all thought that great. This 56-win Wolves season, one of the best regular season Wolves season, is going to be done in 5 games. This sucks. I remember leaving the Target Center feeling that vibe. And then they sweep the Suns. They beat the brakes off them in game 1. Cruise through that series the entire time, then obviously have their run to the Western Conference Finals. Teams built a little differently, 100%. There's no Cat this time. You have a little bit of a different roster now. I understand that, but this was the same thing of, I think we've touched on this a few times on some of these bad losses. I'm not going to hold too much stock in a February 9th loss or an April 8th loss if you're winning playoff games. Now, I mean, yeah, like, they've made their own bed because now they're probably going to have to be a play-in team because of those maddening losses. That's a different conversation. What matters is how they do in the playoffs. So I be pissed off. Have your every right to jump through the window. I'm not going to stop you from jumping through that window, but do not panic quite yet. Let it play out in the playoffs.
I mean, they're going to, I was going to say they deserve, I don't deserve anything today, but they will get and receive a chance to play their way into a series, or they will get into the top 6 or however it plays out, and then we can judge them based on what happens starting in the middle of April. That's a fair point.
Yep.
Judd, what is your hottest take?
Can I combine a Wolves hottest take with indicting myself? Because I feel like Wednesdays are made for saying I was wrong. So I'd like to combine these and say this. On Monday, we did our annual or weekly Wolves vibe check. And we have done now, between Twins and the Wolves and the Vikings, hundreds of vibe checks, okay? I would like to say this. I have never on a vibe check embarrassed myself as much as I did on Monday, when I said that the wins against the Nets and in particular the Sixers were professional wins because they were too close of games, yes, but they won both games. And I tried to say this mercurial team's figured it out. They can at least win the games that they were previously losing, right? So my vibe check was professional approach. Honest to God, it is the most embarrassed I think I've been on Score North by calling that team professional. Last night was one of the most unprofessional, and yes, it might be isolated. It might be the whole problem. I don't know. That I am not here to say that. I am here to say my hottest take as a sports dad has never been as embarrassed to be on camera on this show right now or any other Score North property as I am about that horrendous take, because that was inexcusable. The one thing the Bucks loss did too was, and I know that they did have some guys out. Giannis played, but the one thing is that loss, that meltdown, sort of broke the cycle of, we are used to them, the Wolves, this season losing to teams that have a bunch of guys out, like the Sixers game. They had no one playing, and the game was close. And it's like, that's the type of game that they had lost. Last night, like, there was no reason to sort of take a powder, and they did, or they just got so confused by a defense that they've seen. So I'm indicting myself. My hottest take is Sports Dad has never been this embarrassed as he was to have called the Wolves professional on Monday. My apologies. You deserve better, America, than that.
That's why I look up to Judd for real. Because Judd started this podcast off telling Phil and I to calm down, and then he just played the Uno reverse card. Yeah. And I was like, actually, these guys are, send them home, send them to Cancun.
Well, I'm not as invested in them, though.
No, you're right.
That's the difference. You guys care a lot about the team. Of all the teams in town here, they're probably 4th on my list, but I still am embarrassed to have called them professional when clearly they aren't close to being professional yet.
I got nothing. That was... it's maddening, right? Again, like, if they would have just woken up this morning, like, yeah, they lost by 12 and it was a tight game and stuff. But the way they did it, and the fact, I mean, Dane Moore, who we love, was tweeting in the third quarter, this is a professional response to a couple unprofessional games. And yeah. Phil and I have talked about tweeting in game. Like, Dane was right. Like, those first 3 quarters, what do you poke at? They just grinded them out. They played good defense. They moved the ball. I mean, they hit 4 threes late in that third quarter on perfect ball movement. Dante DiVincenzo had no one in the state of Wisconsin guarding him.
Nope.
And then they just completely abandoned every good ingredient that made a good recipe for them. And now you're here this morning. All of a sudden, when you could have, I think, been in the 4 seed last night with the Clippers winning, you're the 8 seed. And you're looking way up at a bunch of teams that, while you're married to someone who snores, people that are above you are going through divorces. So it's fascinating, Western Conference.
Just to tweak that a little bit, I feel like they cheated. Basketball,
it's worse than snoring. Is that what you're?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's a pattern. And you forgive, right? You forgive and forgive and forgive, and then the start of that Bucks game is like, our marriage is back on track. No more cheating. And then at the end of the day, you can't find them, and you're like, oh God, here we go again.
Dude, they also, I was just going through our text from the group thread with Judd and Dex last night too.
Wolves really impressive.
I said if the scores hold, and the Lakers, that game got weird, but the Lakers lost. If the Wolves score would have held, not only would they be the 4 seed, but they would be a game back of the 3 seed.
Yeah. And
the Lakers have some tough games on the horizon too. So, and even mathematically, as you go back and sift through the carnage, 95-71 with 9 minutes and 55 seconds to go. That is crazy. If you just score 10 points basically from that point forward and lean on them. Now they wound up getting, so it was 95-71. They wound up getting to 110. So you needed 15 points. I said, all you have to do is score 15 points and or don't allow them to score 40. You win this game. The you win this game challenge. It's pretty wild. There's probably not many games like that in NBA history where a team blows. There's been plenty of blown 24-point leads. Blowing a 24-point lead with 9 minutes and 55 seconds left is pretty
If that 23-0 run was like a 23-6 run, the Wolves probably win by 10.
Yeah.
It was just such you had to play your worst possible version of yourself while the Bucks played their best possible version. Someone tweeted at me, if they would have just taken 24-second shot clock violations every possession, they mathematically would have had a better chance to win the game. Yeah. Because they wouldn't have turned the ball over 8 seconds in and given up
fast
transition layups and all that stuff.
Exactly. If you 24-second violation and set your defense up 100%.
Denny Green.
We're going to turn the floor over to Kyle for a last thing here to wrap up. But a shout out to Federated Insurance, too, for powering these hottest takes today. Federated Insurance is here to help you business owners not melt down. And no, sorry, I'm blending the game last night with this Federated read. Federated is here to help you put a game plan in place to stay focused on safety and preventing claims. Let the team at Federated help support your business. They can elevate your business through risk management and focus on that part of it so that you can focus on growing your business. Find out more about the 120-year history of Federated at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, final word, Kyle. Fire away.
I appreciate you guys letting me on this week. I think this is the only episode I'm doing with Phil this week, so I just wanted to get this out here quick. Declan made me think about this at the top with Brewers Fest and a lot of cool breweries that sponsor us. But Flagrant Howls is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast, and the lifestyle is made up of all the people that support us and the fans. And there was not a bigger fan of this show or of this team than Tom Berg, the chief brewing officer over at Falling Knife Brewery. You've probably heard about them on Dane's podcast. He suddenly passed away over the weekend at the early age of 46. Tom was an incredible person and even better friend. He was incredible in the brewing community. I think he was going to be participating in some of the stuff coming up in the Twin Cities with this Brew Fest and all these things going on. And he absolutely loved the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it is a worse day today because he's not around to listen to this and to greet people when they show up to Falling Knife on Thursday to watch the game. And I just want to send, on behalf of this show and Dane's show, just condolences to his family and friends because the fan base lost a real one and the community lost a real one. And that stuff is just a tough reminder. And I always try to say, and Phil, I know you do too, just reach out to the ones you love, check in on them because you never know that tomorrow is not promised. So RIP to Tom Berg, who was a real good one.
Tom was an awesome guy, man. I met him, I think, 2 seasons ago, just, I think, showing up to watch you and Dane do a podcast. And Yeah, it was like we just like jumped into conversation like we had known each other for years and years and years. But he has helped build that community of Wolves fans over there, and it's just, yeah, man, 46 is just a ridiculous too young age to die. So he's a real one. He was a real one for sure. All right, Kyle, thanks for jumping
Appreciate
on
you guys.
here.
Thanks, Kyle.
Hottest Wolves take, sports dad Judd, executive producer Dex. I'm Phil, and this is a Timberwolves therapy and lifestyle podcast.